Let me guess. You're in a relationship where you're on again and off again, or you're always in the relationship but you fight a lot, and when it's good, it's really good, but when it's bad, it's fucking chaos. And this can be a romantic relationship, or it can be even with a friend or a business partner. Chemistry can be in all kinds of relationships. If you pay close attention to these kinds of dynamics, you'll find that it's actually the same pattern. So there's basically two ways that this can go. You can either decide together to work on the situation and both commit to doing the work and, going deeper into figuring out where these issues are coming from and how to resolve them. Or one of you has to say enough is enough and walk away. But maybe you've already tried walking away and then you find yourself being pulled back in and you're like, I've tried everything in my power. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why this is so difficult, why detachment is so difficult. But really, how I want to approach this today is more from an energetics perspective about these unhealthy dynamics and the crucial steps that you need to take to completely detach yourself and finally be able to move forward. First of all, I'm not here pretending to be a relationship expert and like I have all the answers. I teach from my personal experience, and I teach the things that I've lived through and that I feel like I've actually transcended. And this is one thing that I can tell you for a fact. I've transcended toxic relationships, in particular one that I just had last year, and I really just approached it in a completely different way, and I was actually able to let it go in peace. So this is what I want to get to today, how you can detach in a healthy way. And I'm not here to tell you what you probably already hear from your friends or your family, that you deserve better. I mean, yeah, you do, but the problem is that you're not gonna get better unless you actually become conscious of what is that belief that is making you think that what you're getting right now is okay. So if that's your minimum standard, that's what you're gonna continue getting. So my work is all about digging into your subconscious, into those beliefs that are making you feel like you still can't get something better than what you're getting right now. The good news is that there's a way to change that. So stick around to the end of the video. I'm gonna share my story on how I was able to detach from this toxic relationship, and I'm basically gonna share how you can do the same. If you're new here, hi, my name is Talia. I am a modern mystic, and my life's purpose is to help people just like you transcend your self-limiting beliefs. So basically you can become the most unapologetic version of you and leave those toxic dynamics in the past. If that sounds interesting to you, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Let's first start with a very important point. And that is that you actually may be addicted to your own suffering. Yeah. So I have this friend that started dating this guy last year, and this guy's an addict, like drug addict, addicted to video games, etc., etc. And they would just have this toxic relationship, like on and off, and then they would break up and she would be like, he sucks and I'm not getting back together with him, he's an addict, and really judge him hard for being an addict. But then literally a week later they were back together, and this happened like 20 times. So what was interesting was that if you really think about it, she was also an addict. She was not an addict to drugs or substances or like anything really, but she was addicted to him. She was addicted to the endorphins that she would get from being with him. And no, I'm not just referring to the happy moments with him. I'm also referring to the painful moments that she had with him. There is a neuroscientist called Dr. John Montgomery who shared that people who are chronically depressed, when they think these sad and painful thoughts, the thought itself actually releases endorphins in the brain. So people unconsciously become addicted to negative emotions. So my friend, who would say out loud, like she would say, no, of course I deserve better, but then she would go back to this guy, subconsciously she didn't actually think that she deserved better. There's another woman who I love. Her name is Baldwin. She's a somatic experiencing practitioner, and she has this podcast. I can link it in the description. And it's basically talking about how when you were little, when you're growing up, and maybe your caregivers weren't really around to give you that care and affection that you needed, that became like the normal for you. You just became used to not receiving love. So you grow up and that's what you perceive as normal. So if you get love, then you push it away because you're not used to it. It's unfamiliar to you. So your brain subconsciously is always going to look for what it knows in the external world, because the brain loves to stick to what it knows. It hates the unknown. It hates the unfamiliar. Oh, and you might think, oh, but I didn't know this guy was a narcissist when I met him. He was all nice in the beginning and then all the patterns came up. Well, that's where the higher consciousness and the energetic stuff comes into play, because it's all a set of patterns. We can't see that, we can't perceive them with our beta brainwaves, which is basically the state of the brain during the waking day. But there are these larger so-called attractor patterns, that's the actual term in quantum physics, that like attracts like. Similar patterns were kind of, attract each other. So if unrequited love or toxic dynamics or really aggressive fights were what was normal for you your entire life, then like a magnet, you're going to attract the same dynamics in your adulthood. This last part isn't from Sarah's work. This is just me pulling from other quantum physics books. Me personally, my pattern was that I would generally find myself in situationships, like not really a formal relationship, but either the guy wasn't ready to commit or I wasn't ready to commit. So we would end up in this exclusive limbo. I guess we weren't really fully ready to take that extra step. And of course, since I've started doing all of this work over the last few years, I started really noticing that whenever I would feel the guy pulling away a little bit, I would instantly end the relationship. It was like, no, obviously this isn't what I want, so I'm gonna just, walk away, and I wouldn't even communicate properly how I was feeling. I would just react and bail. And sometimes, yes, I would give in and try a second time, but then if that didn't work out, I was like straight up block and be done for good. And I was like, no, because I deserve better. The problem with this and why it doesn't help with detachment, the problem specifically with blocking, is that you're basically just trying to run away and without dealing with the root of the problem, right? It's like, if you think about it, all the work we do in spirituality is about unblocking subconscious beliefs and unblocking self-sabotaging patterns. So if you just go and block and you're like, I don't want to deal with this person ever again, which by the way, they're like inherently blocking a person is not bad in itself. It's more so that if you think that blocking is going to be the solution, it's not. It's like you have to go deeper and figure out what is triggering you and how you can work through that, right? And because that's what's really going to help you detach for good. It's like, let's say you get headaches every day and your solution is to just take Advil to help the headache go away. And by doing this, you're just blocking the pain without actually going into what was the thing that was just causing you headaches in the first place. Like, is it the stress from work? Is it maybe you need glasses? Like, you're not getting to the solution. And the other side of it is that, let's say you block this person and you manage to get rid of him and he never contacts you again, but you're still hurt, you're still resented. Then the problem is that most likely you'll end up dating somebody else with a different head that is just gonna be the same pattern at the end. And that's what happened to me. I dated this guy a couple years ago and I blocked him and I was like, I deserve better and like I'm gonna be strong and I'm gonna not talk to him. But then I still, every now and then I would go on his social media and I would see his stuff, just, curious. That was my own messed up addiction. I guess I knew going on social media and seeing his stuff would hurt me, but I would do it anyway. Yeah, pretty fucked up. And so I would go and if I saw that he was with another girl, then it would just hurt me all over again. And yeah, and it was like it was still fresh, It could have been many months later and it was still hurting me. And that is because time is relative. Another one of the amazing theories of quantum physics from our friend Einstein is that time is not linear. So whatever happened 30 years ago, your brain is not going to pick up the difference. So when they say time heals everything, not really. What time does is it helps you move on, but whatever you haven't dealt with gets buried deep into your subconscious and it will just get triggered the next time something similar happens and you'll just find yourself back again in that same attractor pattern. Different context, same wound. In my last video, I talked in depth about how I was able to transcend my fear of abandonment, basically by overcoming this victim mentality that I had. In summary, I realized that we were both really afraid of closeness. Basically, I guess we both weren't really used to getting love or receiving love. We didn't really feel worthy. And so whenever one of us would feel like the other one was pulling away even a little bit, it could also be completely made up and we weren't actually pulling away, but we would just react rather than communicate, and we would completely back out of the relationship. So it wasn't until I saw that pattern, like I recognized it, observing it from the outside, that I was finally able to transcend that belief. And this is because I saw myself reacting in the moment and I calmed myself down before acting out. I regulated my own nervous system. And then I started questioning my own assumptions on the topic. And then I responded from a secure place. So if you want to know more about how that went, make sure to watch my previous video. What I want to do now is dive into how I was able to completely detach from this relationship, because this was the moment when I transcended kind of that fear of abandonment, but I didn't stop seeing him at that moment. Basically, after I noticed this pattern, I unblocked this belief from myself. I learned to communicate better, and rather than reacting and jumping ship every time, which was my usual pattern, I would actually talk to him and I would ask questions. Because if you jump to conclusions, especially when your nervous system is out of whack, that is not the way to transcend anything. You transcend your beliefs by noticing them, catching yourself, and then questioning what is really the validity behind them. Most, if not all, fears are actually based on falsehood. So after a couple months, actually things got a lot better with us because we weren't getting into these fights anymore. At least whenever they would go there, I would catch myself and I wouldn't let it go there, right? I was now acting from a secure place. He was still reacting, but I already knew how to stop it and not let it go that way. But the irony of life is that there are many, many, many layers of beliefs that we have to unpack if you still don't think that you're in the situation that you ideally would like to be in. So that's what I noticed. I was like, okay, well, it's less toxic now because on my part at least, I'm doing all this work and I'm not reacting, but there were still days where he would just not, he was still somewhere else, and I didn't feel like the relationship was really evolving. We were still in that in-between limbo state. So then one day I remember he was free and we hadn't seen each other for over a week and a half or something, and he preferred to go and play soccer with his friends than to see me. And I remember being like, that's weird. I feel like if I was dating somebody, I would prefer to be with them than play soccer, which he does all the time anyway. So instead of reacting, I decided to go talk to him, and I was like, hey, this is going on. Like, what's happening? And the same usual conversation came up where he's not ready and he doesn't know why. And I swear to you, I feel like in this moment, God channeled through him, God the creator, whatever you want to call the higher powers. And he said, why do you want to be with me knowing that I'm not ready to give you what you deserve? And when I heard that, I was like, damn, he's right. Why am I staying in this relationship? Like, consistently, I am putting all this work in figuring out my beliefs and my fears and blah, blah, blah. But this guy's not doing shit. I can't be doing all the work by myself. And then the next day, I realized that I had that same pattern in a business relationship. I had started this podcast last year with a friend, and we had the exact dynamic where we would fight. I was always doing this extra work and she would not even do the bare minimum sometimes. And it would drive me crazy because I was like, she was a good friend and we had also this amazing chemistry together. We were really good friends, but then she wouldn't do her part. And then I was like, I could see all the potential in her. She's really smart and everything, but she wasn't disciplined, or she wasn't doing her part. And I was like, wow, like, this is the exact same pattern in both relationships, and why am I accepting less than what I deserve, than what I want? And so literally the same day, I was like, I need to end both of these relationships. I need to stop settling. But what was interesting is that I noticed it, and I was like, oh, I've been allowing this. I've been accepting to get less. Like, there's nothing tying me to either of these people, and I'm not chained to them. I can leave, but for some reason I would always just get, I don't know, figure out a million excuses and just try to figure out what was wrong with me to make the relationship work. But I was like, okay, I've done a lot of work and they're still not putting their part. So it's a no-brainer. I have to end these relationships. So this is the most important thing. It's that I took responsibility. It wasn't me throwing blame and being like, you're not doing any work on yourself, not caring for this relationship enough, and whatever the excuse can be. It was not about them anymore. It was about me. It was about me allowing this situation that was obviously not what I wanted. And I knew it. It was more so like, I like this guy so much. We had this amazing chemistry. He's been in my life for a long time. And I just really wanted to make it work. I wanted to figure it out. Like, the part of me, the Capricorn, I'm a Taurus, but I'm a Capricorn rising, if you're into astrology. But I'm a hard worker and like, I want to achieve my goals, and I wanted to figure out the relationship. And then it was like, no, it's not about figuring out. You should actually flow. Like, things should come into place on their own. You shouldn't have to be the only one trying to make something work. So when I broke up with this guy and also broke up with my business partner, I did both of these from a place of knowing and from a calm state of just being like, hey, this isn't working. With him, I was like, listen, I've realized that this isn't what I want, and I'm not blaming you. I think that we're in different places. We want different things, and I take full responsibility for staying longer than I should have. He told me that he wasn't ready for a relationship, that he wanted to take it slow and see how things go. But it had been months and we weren't making any progress. So at some point you have to recognize that you're one decision away from a better life. And the way to really, truly detach is from doing it from your heart, rather than from your triggered nervous system and your brain going like, I'm being abandoned, or I am being used, or whatever may be going on. It's more so like, you know what? I love myself and I know I deserve better, so that's why I'm going to walk away. And when you walk away in peace, in this knowing that you do deserve better, that you can get better, then it's different. Then it's not like blocking and running away and making this whole drama. It's like, yeah, of course. To me at this point, it was like, of course I deserve better. Like, what am I doing? So again, the big takeaway here is that you take responsibility for how you're showing up in the relationship. Observe what's making you uncomfortable. Observe what is triggering you, and then communicate it before jumping to conclusions, before making assumptions. But of course, there's only so much you can communicate, right? If that person isn't receptive, if they're not willing to make improvements or work with you on figuring out, the issues, the underlying issues, then that is the sign when you need to walk away and do it from a place of love. And I repeat, because I've said it in previous videos, that it's love for yourself first and foremost. That is self-love. When you are no longer accepting less. A lot of people will go around and say, that guy is such a narcissist, he does this and that, and they will just point fingers and throw blame. But then I'm like, but why do you allow it? Unless you're trapped in a cell, and okay, well, I'm not gonna get that dark, but you can walk away. In most cases, you can walk away. Also have compassion, because if a person is such a narcissist and is really, a bad person, have compassion, because that person is not well. A person that feeds off of people's weaknesses and is trapped in his own ego and pride and anger many times, that person's not well. So have compassion, don't throw blame, simply walk away. Walk away. That is how you take back your power and you're able to move on. And yeah, that person might still be poking you and annoying. Like that guy from last year that I'm mentioning, he's still reaching out. He tries any and all possible ways to see me, and I just ignore his messages. They used to really affect me whenever he would reach out and I'd be like, oh, is he now trying? Like, did he change his mind? Is he gonna try better now? Like, and now I'm like, no, nothing's changing. He doesn't want to do the work. So I just let it go, and I'm like, yeah, that's him still reaching out, but I'm not gonna fall for it. So just remember, at this point, you probably did everything you could, and it's now time for you to raise your minimum standard. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this was useful. So if you enjoyed this video, you might want to watch my previous video on overcoming victim mentality. This is where I talk about how I overcame my fear of abandonment, and I go into detail about what happened with this guy. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thank you so much.